Welcome back to the Pro Football Pod. We are bringing you the Week 9 running back tight end preview. We're going to give you the starts. We're going to give you the sits. Who should you play and who should you not? That's why you're here. So let's get it started with some running backs.
High and tight. High
High
and
and
tight,
tight.
boys.
Nipple to
Hey,
nipple, baby.
hey.
Nipple to nipple.
We mentioned him earlier, and we're going to mention him again. Gus Edwards.
Gus Bus.
He's the bus. He's got a decent matchup versus Seattle this week. But Justin, I'll let you take it from there.
I love Gus Bus. He's the last couple seasons have just, derailed him by injuries. He's been part of just kind of a stable of running backs. Harbaugh wanting to use this guy for 6 carries, this guy for 7 carries. But you're starting to see, okay, Gus is the guy we can lean on. Gus is the guy we can trust here. And Justice Hill is getting some work in, but it is mostly in the passing game
Agreed.
because he is so shifty and small and everything. But I mean, last week showed it 3 touchdowns. Like they're trusting him with the ball in the end zone. It's not necessarily Lamar vulturing all of these touchdowns anymore because they can trust another runner to put it in. So I'm all about Gus Bus. We've mentioned him now in about 3 or 4 episodes this week, and rightfully so. If you don't have him, I think he's a guy that you can make a trade for, and you don't have to give up a lot because he's not a guy that also carries insane value to where you'd have to give up a lot. So he's one of those guys to where I think you're able to find a good, solid trade that works for both teams and one of those trades that rarely work out for both guys. But
Hot
because of his
take.
value, I would look to trade for him. I think I have him in every league.
Hot take. But you should trade him away because King Henry's on his way into the Ravens backfield. And
Now
when you
that
see him
is
in
a
that
hot
black and
take.
purple, I mean, bro, it might be the scariest thing you've ever seen in the NFL.
Insane.
It's gonna be gnarly.
Now he's got Seattle this week. Seattle's a bit of a tough matchup compared to Arizona, but easier of a matchup compared to Detroit. So he's been putting up solid outings the last couple of weeks. Before this past weekend, he only had 2 touchdowns on the year. Now he has 5. So he did more touchdowns this past Sunday than he's done for the whole season. But he also did one the week before against Detroit. It's hard to view the Detroit game as more than just an outlier because of how much they won that game by, and just in general how ahead 38-6. Like they were in charge of that game the whole time, and he still only got 14 carries for 64. I am a little bit weary some of Gus Edwards, but not necessarily this week. I think next week against Cleveland is whenever I'm actually worried, just because it's a divisional matchup, even though Cleveland isn't as good against the running back as Seattle technically. Now, another running back, similar situation. At least he's the only real guy there. We talked about him in our Week 8 recap because of how he did last week. Rashad White should have another solid game this week. He's got Houston. Houston is quite a matchup for him. They're ninth best against the running backs. It's a 1 o'clock game. It's in a dome. I think that in general, we talked about him earlier this week about how his receiving work has been picking up. I think that's why he's going to have so much value again this week. Houston's receiving has been really good against the wide receivers and tight ends, but not as much against the running backs. Their coverage.
I yeah, I agree there as well. Another guy that I like this week. I mean, just on top of Rashad White, we did mention him as well. Just he is getting a lot more work in the passing game, and Baker's just trust. So for me, he is a good guy to preview, but he's also been a guy that's like scared me because you just haven't seen the explosive, the explosiveness you'd want to see have running back one for him. He's got it, but and I also credit that too to the offensive line. Like I just don't think their offensive line is the best.
The thing that gives Rashad White the value is the receiving. He's had 2 targets, 5 targets, 3 targets, 3 targets. They went on by. He had 4 against Detroit. which they lost 6-20. I thought he should have had more targets that game, and I think they did too. That's why he got 6 against Atlanta and 7 this past week against Buffalo. Now they're losing these games, and they're close games. So I think that they realize that Godwin and Mike Evans isn't going to be able to carry the load, that they do have this young running back that is useful in the passing game. Hopefully they start to design some things for him. At least that's what I'm hoping for. I think that he's been riding my flex to bench, all season. And after last week against a tough opponent, I want to move him up. I mean, he's got one of his easiest matchups all year. If this isn't a week to start him, you only have a couple more that are going to be easy decisions to start for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I gotta start him because of bye weeks. There's a lot of teams on bye, so he's definitely someone I gotta throw in my flex.
That's the time when you get happy. Whenever you have to start someone and they have one of their
Yeah,
best
and
matchups.
it lines up with one of those weeks. Yeah.
I have
And
that
it's
for.
like, I want to see what this guy can do.
I have Tua, and Tua has the Week 10 bye week, and that's whenever the Seahawks play Arizona. So I get Geno against Arizona the 1 week I don't have Tua. So sitting pretty there. We didn't even plan that one. That was just a draft day decision. Sometimes that is how it is. Tight ends. It's difficult, man, finding a tight end to start every week. Taysom Hill. Austin, you had someone that you liked this week. What are you thinking about Taysom?
Yeah, man, it's been crushing it as a receiver, as a quarterback, as a running back. He does it all. He's a Swiss Army knife. He's. I mean, the Saints are realizing what they have with him, and they're actually using him. So it's nice. So if you can get your hands on him, I definitely would, and I would start him as a tight end or a super flex option.
He's getting a lot of work here lately.
He really is. The receiving game is where I was intrigued seeing him get work in because they have so many receivers as it is, but like him getting fed like that and then doing what he does with the ball, he is to me one of the most special players in the NFL. It's crazy that he doesn't get more work because he's Christian McCaffrey in
Except
a
he's
sense.
6'3", 225.
And runs
Yeah.
a 4.5.
He's
a special
more
breed.
athletic Tebow.
Yes.
Exactly.
We highlighted Taysom Hill last week on a couple of our episodes because of him putting up 15 points versus Jacksonville and 8.7 points against Houston. And the thing we said is that he's going to have a tough matchup against Indy. And if he can do well in this tough matchup, he's got Chicago, and then he's got Minnesota, and then he's on bye, and he only really has one hard matchup for the rest of the season. He might be someone that's worth picking up. He's available in quite a few of my leagues where I have like Mark Andrews or I have like a top tier tight end. So that's the only reason he's available in my opinion. I'm not going to pick him up for Mark Andrews or Travis Kelce, but for just about anybody else,
Laporte's on bye this week, so it's an easy plug.
that's a very good call, Austin. Very good call. Now, someone that was a good pickup last week and we said was a good pickup this week, we're going to tell you right now not to play. Trey McBride, he plays against Cleveland. And Cleveland has been a tough defense. They've been the hardest defense for tight ends for the entire season. Part of it is that the quarterbacks don't have time to get the ball out. Part of it is that the linebackers for Cleveland are actually really good at covering. And part of it is that they run this defense. It's not necessary.
It's tough. I can't. Those dudes ain't relevant.
What, Cleveland's defense?
Yeah.
I don't understand your hate on them. They are top 5 in every category versus fantasy relevant football players.
There's one quarterback. I mean, one player on their team popping off for him.
That's not true.
Austin, do you watch the Cleveland games?
I do.
Because that
I
defense
see them
is
lose.
nasty.
Across the board, Denzel Ward has been unbelievable this year. Like, Myles Garrett is not the only player that they have. They have a lot of them. That's why they're the top 5 defense. They were historically the best defense through the first 5 weeks that had ever happened. Ever. Nobody had ever held teams to as low of points or as low of yards. It's young, and there's still a top 5 in every category. So, like we're saying, Trey McBride is playing against a top 5 defense at number 1 against tight ends. So, this is not a week to let it ride. Pick up Taysom Hill. Like we just said, he's available and free, and he's probably going to put up 25 points because he's going to get 9 carries for 75 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's just what's going to happen. So, if you want to be smart, then be smart. Now, we do have some streamers. I know that we just talked about a couple of guys that are available in most leagues, but we want to make sure that your guys are never going to lose another fantasy team as long as you make sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below. So, first one for you is the exact same situation that happened last week that made Trey McBride and Dalton Kincaid so valuable is they are on a team with a solid offense. And the number 1 tight end went down, and they were the number 2 tight end that was primed to succeed. Donald Parham already has like 4 or 5 touchdowns this year. He did very well after Gerald Everett got hurt, and he's going to do really well again. So I think that he's not going to have to play the Cowboys this week. That's a huge plus. Like, whenever you have to play the Cowboys defense, you're probably not going to do that good. But whenever you don't have to play the Cowboys defense, then you're going to do good. It's pretty much that easy.
Yeah, see there, we're giving love to the Cowboys D, Austin. Come on now.
That's a great D.
You don't have to keep hating on Cleveland.
Especially when you're playing against Chicago's defense. I think oh wait, no, I'm sorry. They're playing against the Jets defense. Donald Parham gets to play against the Jets defense, who gives up more points to tight ends than anybody else so far this season. Nobody's really looking at this guy. No one's really talking about him. I think that's a solid streamer. You got another one for us?
Other than Donald Parham?
Yeah.
I like Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz a lot. Now, the Bucks versus tight ends have been solid, but I mean, after what Kincaid kind of gave you, I mean, I know Schultz isn't really the route runner, but I think Schultz can get it done. I think he can give you a serviceable, 8 to 12 point game.
The last couple of weeks, so this past weekend, everyone's going to look at him putting up 1.5 points. He had 5 targets with 2 receptions. He's still getting the targets. He's had 10 targets, 7 targets, and 5 now over the last 3 weeks that he's played. I think that all of that screams that this is still someone that's a part of their defense. Tampa Bay is going to be a tough game across the board for their wide receivers, for their tight ends, for their running backs. So I think that they're going to need him, and I think that come that fourth quarter push, a player like Dalton Schultz, he could see a touchdown. That's all we really need for him to see the value. With the targets he's getting, if he gets a touchdown, he is a guaranteed start.
I agree as well. I agree because, outside of Taysom and the Kincaids and guys that we've already mentioned this week, I mean, with 6 teams on a bye, especially at the tight end position, you just got to take what you can get at this point.
Yeah. Now we've got a couple of defense streamers for you that are still watching. I'll start it off with the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers are playing against the Jets. That's the big reason we're going for it. Jets are the worst offense against defenses so far because Zach Wilson's only had 1 good game, and it was in prime time. And
I mean, Breece Hall's been looking decent.
This is a Monday night game against the Chargers, though. The Chargers, Breece Hall had 1 50-yard reception last week, and without that, he would have been horrible. I mean, he did nothing in rushing. I think he had like 15 carries for like 17 yards or something crazy. So the Giants are not a good defense. And the Chargers are on paper. They've had some bad matchups, but as of late, they've been solid. They put up 9 points last week. They put up only 4 against Kansas City, but they're getting the sacks. They're getting the fumbles. They're getting the turnovers. They have an interception in almost every game so far this season, and they only don't have one sack in one game, and that was against Miami week 1. And we know that that's because their offensive line is elite. At least they were in week 1 when they were all healthy.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's one where you're playing the matchup. The Chargers defense has been looking much better. Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa just, doing what they do, causing havoc. And the other team as well. I mean, you haven't got to see them, but if you happen to watch Monday Night Football, or because that's happened to be playing while we're recording this, as of right now, the Vegas defense is looking solid. It's 16-14 with 11:32 left to play in the third, and Vegas just returned to pick 6. Now, offensively, Jimmy Garoppolo's not looking very good, 4 for 10, 42 yards, but their defense, I do like the fact that their defense they force turnovers, and in fantasy, that's what you're wanting, forcing turnovers here, get us some points, just generate low-scoring games. So you're looking at the Lions, a team that typically puts up almost 30. They're struggling right now just a little bit, outside of the yardages here. Yardages are looking great for the Lions, but that's neither here nor there. So I like Vegas as a streaming defense as well.
It's all
Jack
about the
Harlow.
matchups.
Jack Harlow's at this game. I mean, fuck Taylor Swift, but we got Jack Harlow at the Lions.
Hey, there we
Monday
go.
Night Football game.
I don't know if we don't all agree with Austin's statement. We don't need it.
Want that life.
Don't
Do
need
not
it.
cancel our show, please. He did not mean it. He's just a very big fan of Jack Harlow.
Yeah, nothing to do with Taylor Swift. He loves Taylor Swift. Don't
Fuck
worry.
Taylor Swift.
Don't do that
What
again.
what did y'all just
If we
do?
ever do
Awesome.
get famous, that's what they're gonna clip and come back to, and we're going to get rated.
She's gonna be emperor of the world by then, and I mean,
Travis
what?
put Taylor on the map. Are you kidding me, dude?
All right. Before Austin says anything that gets us canceled, make sure to like, comment, subscribe down below. Go to Tulsi Rose Tea at TulsiRoseTea.com for all of your tea needs. And Taylor, we're sorry. Peace.